Australia remade, and it is now being recorded. Thank you. So yeah, we're really excited, super excited to have Vicky on board. We've known Vicky for some time now and supported all the incredible work that Friends of the Earth, Act on Climate have been doing. And also Paris Christo from Whittlesea. And we are really excited to have the different kinds of experiences on community mapping here today from a community perspective, and also from Friends of the Earth Act on Climate and some of the work they do around this. So I will go ahead and introduce for Vicky to pass on the conversation. So go ahead, Vicky.
Thank you so much, Monica. Hello, everyone. And yeah, it's such a pleasure being here today. I love talking about community resilience mapping to everyone that I can. We found it to be an amazing tool that we've been using. I'm just going to start screen sharing. Just confirm everyone can see the slides. Amazing. So I'd also like to start by acknowledging country. I live and work on Wurundjeri country, and just like to acknowledge that this is stolen Aboriginal land, and always was and always will be, and pay respect to elders past and present. So just a little bit about Act on Climate. We're the climate justice collective of Friends of the Earth Melbourne. And with our campaigning at the moment, we're calling on the Victorian Government for ongoing and adequate funding of community-led climate adaptation initiatives. And the other part of our campaign is the empowering communities to begin adapting. And this is where the community resilience mapping workshops that we do with various communities comes into it. And the other things we do, we share information about climate initiatives that are already underway, such as on our Australia climate adaptation map. And we also have monthly adaptation activator calls where anyone who's done mapping or anyone that wants to progress climate adaptation in their community can come along, and we just talk together and see how we can progress those projects together. So a bit about the origins of this community resilience mapping. So I came across it through the Climate Resilience Project, which is a US-based project. It is also a book. I fully recommend this Climate Resilience book I've got a picture of here. It is, an amazing book. It goes into everything climate adaptation. There's a lot of essays, and it has very practical things that people can do at the end of each chapter. And it has this tool, community resilience mapping, featured in it. So Act on Climate came across this, and of course we like to, shout them out as the originators of it. And we've changed it up a little bit to what we've found has worked best in the communities that we've been going into. So what is community resilience mapping? So we see it as, a tool in the toolbox of workshops that can be used to ensure community-led climate adaptation. So it's really used to ensure that resilience strategies are good and keeping all community members safe, and we want to prevent maladaptation. So it really helps inform the preparedness, see where there are gaps, so those can be prioritized, and community knows where they want to put their time and resources. And what we've seen that really results in practical community-led solutions. And it also shares knowledge of the strengths that are already there in the community and ways that people can already stay safe. So it's really important that it's coming from a strength-based place, and it is also mapping those strengths as well as any potential deficits. Because we really want to make sure that it's not deficiency orientated and people know what's already there. And it's also, an important way that we can make sure that people are protagonists of their own stories, as it says in this wonderful quote here. So the actual process, and it is, you go through a process of brainstorming 4 things. So it's looking at the exposures. So we've changed the language a bit. This is one of the things that we've changed from the Resilience Project. Instead of exposures, we talk more about climate impacts and risk. So this is really on the local level. What are those impacts that are of concern? And then the second thing that was looked at was sensitivities. So we've changed that to those who are most at risk. That's looking at both who and which areas of the community geographically are more at risk. The third thing that would be brainstormed was called assets. We've changed that language to strengths, and that's what's already in place that is keeping people safe and reducing impacts. And then the last thing that's looked at is what they call adaptive capacity. So we've kind of changed that to gaps/solutions. And this is a section where you can kind of look at who's not being kept safe and what action needs to be taken to cover those gaps. So a bit on how Act on Climate is using it. So yeah, we're really using it as a tool to facilitate either the starting of conversation around climate adaptation or furthering that conversation. So we know that the knowledge is in communities. It's not us. We're not bringing the knowledge. We're just using this tool to facilitate, bringing that knowledge out and getting it shared around. And yeah, we've really found that it pinpoints gaps in preparedness and adaptation and who's not being kept safe. And it really uncovers actionable, tangible ideas that a community can take on itself. So it's not, it's really focusing on the smaller things that communities can do, and that's very empowering, rather than looking at bigger projects that only, the government or council can take on. So we see it as a very empowering activity. And yeah, coming soon. So the next step of something that we want to do is we want to take this process onto a pilot project and actually work with the community to take it from the ideation stage actually into making the project a reality and seeing what that looks like. So the collective, is really excited about that, taking that next step. So I was going to share a bit more about the process more in depth before taking you through some of the past mapping that we've done in communities and what came out of it, because it's really interesting seeing how different information comes out of different communities, and also sharing some of the amazing solutions that people came up with. But I did want to share with you that we do have a blog post on how to do this, as well as a facilitation guide, because we really want this to be something that everyone can do, and we're really keen to help others do it. But yes, we're really also hoping that with our facilitation guides and how-to, people can just take this on and do it in their communities, so they will always be there if anyone wants to chat to us about it or wants our help. So the way that we've come up with through, I think we've done 5 or 6 mapping now, that we really see as the best way to do it. That's like, not the best way, but that's worked the best for us so far, is we've got everyone together to brainstorm the main climate impacts locally that people are concerned about. And then we choose a couple to focus on, because one of the things we realized early on is that, as we all know, climate impacts are very wide-ranging, and it is hard to do this process without focusing clearly on one or two. And of course, the process can be done over and over again with other ones. So we've, made it really focused, and then we break into groups, and each group would focus on each impact. And then we do the 3 brainstorms. We start with strengths, so we've also flipped that around from the original process. Found that starting with the strengths worked better, and then looking at those most at risk, and then finally the gaps and the solutions. And then we come out with those 3 for each of the specific climate risks that are being focused on. And then we have report backs between brainstorms and someone taking notes where we note everything down. So it's a very lo-fi process. It's just whiteboards and butcher's paper and pens. So yeah, we really feel that it's something that anyone can do, and hope people feel empowered to take it on. So during the brainstorms, these are a couple of prompts that we use if needed. So we always let people speak first with the knowledge that they have, but we have some great collective members that help with facilitation that will either sit at the tables or go around, depending on how many we have, and prompting people to think about all these different various ways that people might be more at risk, as well as all the various strengths that we might be having, to make sure, we're thinking across all of these areas. Because risk and strength come in so many different forms in our communities. And important things that we always note at these activities is vulnerability, and making sure that we're viewing it as a consequence and not a condition, because we really want to avoid victimization of everyone. So there's a great quote there by APAN, who have a mapping resilience report, which I also recommend. So I haven't linked that, but hopefully we can find it. So it's, making sure that it's recognized that it's a circumstance or consequence of historic and systematically marginalization, and people being excluded from opportunity. And it's also really important that we are including those most at risk in our definition and developing and driving of solutions. So with mapping, obviously not everyone is going to be in the room when we're first doing it there, but what I also like about it is a process that can be replicated and added to in various different ways. So we always say that it's best if solutions do come up, include anyone that might need to benefit from the solution, and those most at risk identified. It's really important that they are included in any further development of the solutions that come out of it. And as noted today already on this call, we always talk about the heaviness of the topic, and make sure we're sharing mental health resources and spaces where people can go during and after. So we always share Psychology for Safe Climate has a great climate feelings website, and there's an Active Hope training course, which is also a really good tool. And Bushfire Survivors for Climate to have this great lived experience guide, which is good to read to make sure that we're coming to everything with a trauma-informed approach. So where we've mapped, so next we're going to go through a bit of a journey of the places where we have mapped and what came out of it. Our first mapping was in Frankston, along with sweltering cities. This one was focused on heat, because that's, sweltering cities focus. So that worked really well, just focusing on heat. And things that came out of it, it really came out that people weren't safe both day and night during heat waves. So, and that people weren't aware of what was already available to stay safe. So there was some great information sharing on that, and the things that came out of it that this group of people are hoping to achieve are retain and monitoring the health of mature trees, because I found something they were worried about were mature trees not being looked after. So they wanted to make sure that was happening, as well as new plantings. They're hoping to make sure that Frankston Library can stay open later on heat waves, or something that they pinpointed as something that they could make happen. And they wanted to create a community climate change heatwave group. So it was a great first experience. There was so much energy in the room. And at each of these, you'll see there's a link here. Hopefully we'll be able to send these slides around to everyone. So we do have a full rundowns of everything. and blogs on our website that people can go read if they're interested in the full rundown of everything that was mapped. The second one we did was in East Gippsland with East Gippsland Climate Action Network. So this was one of the places where we learned that you really do need to focus down a bit more, because East Gippsland is across a very wide area with a very wide range of impacts. But things that came out of it was that, yeah, the unique sensitivities in East Gippsland due to its vastness, and isolation and its reliance on tourism and agriculture, and how the responsibility is spread pretty far against agencies and individuals. This mapping had quite a few agencies in the room, as well as community members. So it was kind of looking, at that and how agencies and community members can work a bit better together, came a lot out through it. And it also really brought to the fore how people and a community, it depends on your relationships, attitudes, knowledge, skills, and experience, whether it's an asset or more at risk. So those are came out as really important things. So some of the solutions that, people wanted to make happen were more community newsletters, phone trees, door knocking, ham radios, and use of WhatsApp groups to really form those connections and information sharing. And with energy security, there was a lot there as well that came out. So people wanted to look at using EVs for vehicle to load power, microgrids and electricity sharing and battery systems were things that people were really interested in making happen there. And then other things like self-sufficient, things like more tank water, community bunkers, co-ops for food. They wanted to make sure, because of that isolation, that they had that, self-sufficient community infrastructure in place. And I just wanted to, there we go. Wanted to share this as well. East Gippsland Climate Action Network has really just taken and run with it following the mapping. I'm just so proud of the amazing work they've done since. So they immediately started this Climate Ready Communities project. They had a public forum where they shared all the outcomes of the mapping with the broader public. They've had small group conversations. They've created this local adaptation game that they've been playing with people, and they're engaged a young artist that's going to design one to make it more appealing to younger people and get younger people involved. And they've created another small group, Community Action for Readiness in Emergencies, which goes down to care, in Mitang specifically, as a pilot of a small local group that they're hoping can be adapted for other communities in East Gippsland. So I love that case study because it just shows the power and what can come out of it. Because I've chatted to them quite a lot about it, and they said they wouldn't have felt empowered or confident enough to do any of this without us coming down and doing the mapping with them. So that's a great case study of what can be achieved. Our third mapping was in Mernda with the Northeast Neighbourhood House Network. This was more of a preview of mapping than a full mapping. And what stood out with it, because it was from the Neighbourhood House Network, was that we really need to be networking with neighbouring communities and working with other councils. Because as they were saying, climate impacts, it's not boundary lines drawn on the map, and your closest refuge or route to safety might be in the neighbouring community. So you actually need to know what's happening over there as well. So out of that, there were plans to form a working group or alliance in the Neighbourhood House Network to continue this collaboration on climate adaptation and advocate to their councils for support. And it also resulted in us doing a full mapping in Whittlesea. We also did Greater Dandenong with South Monash Legal Services. And at this mapping, they chose to focus on heat, flooding, and storms. Something that stood out as this one was the big gap of people that not on social media, who weren't getting communications and info. And they really wanted to integrate heatwave education into local activities. They wanted better street signage that really shows where flooding occurs to make that really obvious. And they wanted to create localized networks of safety and start mapping who is what and where can go and plan for scenarios. A lot of people from Greater Dandenong Environment Group were there, and they were quite keen to get people together to continue this work on climate adaptation projects. And something I think I haven't mentioned yet, but you would have noticed that we're always partnering with local groups to do this, because I think it's important for these projects to continue, that there's a lot of local people in the room that will be able to continue it locally. And the fifth one we did was with Whittlesea. I won't say too much about this because we have Paris on the call who will speak to it. But we mapped food security, water management, heat, and biodiversity loss. So this one was a lot of like ensuring language and culturally appropriate communication, ensuring co-design of solutions, and sharing info as part of people's routines. Also, so that's something that came out, go to where people are at. And a great example is like at the end of mosque service, do a PSA about cool refuge and what's available, so that people are getting the information where they are. They also wanted to map existing initiatives with food security. They wanted to encourage gardening and have seed libraries and farmer co-ops started. They wanted more water fountains and green spaces, public schooling places, and they wanted to start some place-based working groups. Even though we didn't talk about energy resilience, a community battery working group was promoted on the day, and they're going to get started getting a neighborhood battery going. And Whittlesea Climate Action Network has an adaptation working group now, and they've been doing more mapping with other people in their community in various ways. So that's, been a great progression as well. And the last one was last weekend. I personally didn't make this one, but some of the other team went along to Eltham, and we're going to be doing a Hurstbridge one this Saturday as well. So if anyone is in Hurstbridge on the call, we can let you know, and we'd love to see you there. So this was with Nillumbik Climate Action Team. This one, they looked at bushfires, planning and governments was something that they looked at, which, sounds extremely interesting. I'm very sad I wasn't there. And changing season and seasonal disruption was another thing that they mapped. They also found a need for information sharing networks at a local level. So I think this is something that's come out at everyone probably, is that we really need those local networks and communication. They wanted informal personal connections to check in with each other were really important. And the need to build on existing groups and networks. Don't expect busy people to join new groups. So again, it's like, going to people where they are to share that information. The solutions that they're keen to see happen are resilience champions who share info and check on people at a local level. And survival packs also something they were interested in getting together, kit with essentials to survive power outages for up to 72 hours. And that's it from me and us at Act on Climate. And this picture here is the amazing team that did the mapping last weekend. We're upskilling a heap of collective members to be able to do it as well. But please, contact us if you want to help to make this happen. And this is how you can reach out to me, and Kim and Kimmy are my co-community organizers. Kim in the front row on the left and Kimmy back row to the right. It's the three of us, the team, and please contact us if you want to learn anything more. But I really hope that you feel empowered to just take this on and do it yourself and give it a go.
Thanks, Vicky. I think, yeah, that was incredibly inspiring to see and hear all of those different examples from all those different locations, really refined and shaped by the community's contexts, the diversity of the communities, and based on their strengths and needs. And yeah, it was incredibly rich. And I think we've got Paris here. And Paris is from the Mernda, what was it?
Neighborhood
Paris
house.
Mernda Neighborhood House. So sorry, yes.
Oh.
And Paris actually did this community mapping alongside, was it part of the Whittlesea Community Connect, or was it just through the Mernda Neighborhood House?
Complicated, but it was Vicky and team came on to India, and Vicky came and did the community resilience
Yeah.
mapping with our climate network group, Whittlesea Climate Action Network group. So yeah.
Yeah. I think it'd be really interesting, obviously, to hear your community perspective about what that process was like for yourself, and also just as a collective sort of community, and coming from a neighborhood house as well, having that sort of support system to actually be able to kind of come together and yeah, I guess literally start mapping out those community strengths and needs. But yeah, how did it go with the whole sort of process?
Well, it was incredibly valuable. I might just sort of like give you context of where we are. And Mernda is the last station of the Mernda line, and we're right on the edge of the Green Wedge. So the municipality of Whittlesea, or City of Whittlesea, is our most northern end. Um, and so it's verging on, rural Green Wedge, and then the most southern end, Lalor or Thomastown, is really urban. So climate risks in this municipality are really varied. So we started. And includes, the most northern part of the municipality is Whittlesea Township, and that's rural compared to most southern, which is very urban. Whittlesea were, heavily impacted in the 2010 bushfires, of course, that engulfed Kinglake and converged on the township, on the edges of the township. There is no climate action network in the city of Whittlesea, and we wanted to start this group to give community a voice on climate change and action. And from the get-go, we really wanted to make sure that we were including multicultural voices. One, because they're not as commonly heard in some climate action groups, and because they hold the communities around us hold a lot of knowledge around climate change and disaster from different countries that they've migrated from. So wanting to harness that knowledge as well. So we've only been going for about a bit over a year now. In coming together and forming a terms of reference and all the wonderful things that you do with the new group, and trying to understand what our scope for the group was, what we wanted to achieve, that's when we heard from Vicky, and so we had about and we thought it was a great idea to do the resilience mapping exercise with her. So we had about 25 members there, and it was the first time we could, as a group, really focus on, well, what do we all know or think are the climate risks in our area? And the group is very local. It can be very overwhelming to think of what's happening around the world, around Australia, or Victoria, as you go on the bigger picture. So we're trying to stay very focused, local risks and changes. So it was great to go through the mapping exercise and to hear from everybody what they thought were the biggest risks to our local community, and then to hear from everybody like what we could do about them, where the gaps were. So in effect, that exercise helped us sort of think about, you know, where our efforts, where we were to put our energy and efforts with We Can. And we haven't quite done everything that Vicky talked about, but we're a pretty new group, and we're still trying to work out how we're still forming connections and building and getting stronger as a group. But we'd like to do more of the community resilience mapping with smaller groups around our municipality, because we want to understand directly from community what they know, what they think the risks are, and what can they do as smaller community groups or a larger network to help either with adaptation, mitigation. Well, we can't really mitigate most anyway. What some of the solutions might be. So yeah, that was us. Overall, it was a really valuable exercise at a really great time in the formation of our group, and we want to keep going and doing more of it with others.
And it kind of touches as well on a couple of the themes around building those relationships, building those connections and trust. And this sort of pathway of doing sort of exercises like this can be a really great way to understand individuals within your community as well. I'm sure, like I can imagine that there would have been quite an experience with meeting lots of people maybe familiar to you or not familiar to you, or familiar to like the broader community as well. And doing those sort of smaller mapping exercises on like a sort of micro scale, I think sounds like also a really interesting step forward to kind of expand and provide these other opportunities or touch points for connection.
I think so, especially when English is a
Yeah.
second language. And
Yeah.
so a smaller group, there's lots of little multicultural groups in the city of Whittlesea, and they're the groups we want to reach out to run the exercise with, and
Yeah.
just sort of slow down the process and make sure that everybody
Yeah.
is on board with it. Because we did do an adaptation game exercise, and there were some people there where English was a second language, and it was too complicated for them. So we think the resilience mapping is a much more accessible format or structure to have those conversations with community groups.
Yeah, absolutely. And those opportunities aren't that often provided, I think. And for predominantly for multicultural communities, I think it's a wonderful touch point to engage with lots of different kinds of knowledges, and also understand like more about the context and environment in which you're living in. It sounds like a really amazing experience that you guys have had, and obviously it's a slow process. Like it's not something that's gonna completely change and shift overnight, or might build a bit of momentum in the moment, but take some time to sort of engage people and continue to provide some sort of action towards building those solutions up over time. And I'm just conscious of time because I also wanted to present an opportunity for people to actually come together and talk a little bit about this within a smaller group. And if you've kind of joined our get-togethers before, we kind of like to do little breakout rooms. And we have a whiteboard as well, which I think Kate will drop in the chat. And once we jump into the breakout rooms, we've got these two questions. And the first is discuss what's already in place to keep you and your community safe. And the second one is what are some of the noticeable gaps and what can be done about those? So yeah, feel free to talk from your own experience and consider deep diving on some of these things. If you just want to focus on the first question, please feel free to do that. But if you can just get a scribe or someone who can kind of stay writing and documenting some of the kind of good stuff that we're going to talk about. And a lot of this today's session will be produced in a bit of a summary to help support people kind of wanting to deep dive on community mapping as well, and potentially to reach out to Vicky as well. So yeah, let's jump in, and I think you'll slowly start to be put into breakout rooms. So we will see you on the other side.
We're just working some IT magic here. Mom's just computer just died, so she's just going to jump in on this computer. Hi, you get 2 for 1. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. So yeah, I guess those 2 questions were like, the one was probably a little bit easier to navigate, but the second one was definitely a bigger question. I think everyone could say the gaps are massive, and depending on context and difference, it can be, yeah, huge. So I guess we like to usually just go through each group and hear some of the things that were shared. The first group, I'm not sure who was part of that first group, but if you're open and willing to kind of share the things that were discussed, please just go in and share.
I'm not sure what number group we were.
That's all right. Just jump in and go for it. Could just be some of the little post-it notes.
Yeah, I think the thing that stood out is how the disparity between the difference between rural and even within rural settings, people in the group who were where heat was not an issue compared to other people where heat was an issue, or those in urban areas, and the differences in resources that were available. So and where rural communities, those in the group that came from rural communities, that where there was a vastly sort of lacking in resources, and even coming up with problems like community centres and libraries and so forth that may be present not being open because there isn't the volunteer power to keep them open in an emergency. So it really, like, depending on where people in the group I was in came from, the scenario was very different. But and I'll just, in the city of Whittlesea, I do know that that council has a map of all the different places you can go to in a heat event. So cooling spaces, or cool spaces. I'm not sure what it's actually called, but that's just one of the examples that we came up with. But in Narooma, there's a bushfire and heat haven directory that community can use.
That's awesome. Thanks, Paris. Is there anyone else that wanted to share things that their group talked about?
Hi, it's Jai here, joining from Guruppi country. I was in the conversation with Deb and Vicky, and I was very keen to ask Vicky a whole bunch of questions about the presentation. I felt very privileged to be able to be in a breakout with Vicky. So yeah, we heard a little bit about how FO is, what the piloting approach that they're sort of putting together, and some of the things they've been doing, and found out that Vicky comes from the place that's going to do the mapping on the weekend, so it's going to be really interesting and exciting for her. And talked a bit about Deb's experience with DisasterWISE, and also I'm looking to do this kind of thing in my community with some of my neighbours, so we had a bit of chat about that. Yeah.
That's
Thanks
great.
very much.
I think, yeah, a lot of the times that we do this, we always expect people to not also answer the questions, and that's fine as well, because it's also just an opportunity for you guys to connect with one another and yeah, just meet each other. So yeah, no pressure at all
Yep.
to do the questions. But thanks, Guy. Rinny and Gavin, I don't know if you guys, I've been talking way too much, so if you guys wanted to give a little overview, even if it's like one point.
I said about community resources and basically having a bit of a tree about not just who to contact, it's just what resources have you got community wise if you are possibly isolated. It's like, you know, what generators have you got in the area, what things have you got available for the community that can be used to get you out of that kind of bit of trouble. And that's about it, really. I think there's more to find out from Malakuta, because Malakuta was really interesting.
Just we spoke about I am from Malakuta, so one of the community-led programs that was stood up after the fire was MADRA, and that's been a really good group to help like with the recovery efforts, but also those preparedness stuff going forward. They're still in the background here, so even almost 6 years on. So that's been one of our real assets, having them around to liaise and advocate for the town. And we also spoke about like how good things were, like tool libraries, which a lot of communities have got up and running as well. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Rinny. Thanks, Gavin. Okay, I am conscious of the time because we've gotten a minute over, but I just want to say a really big thank you to Vicky and to Paris, who just had to head out, and really appreciate everyone attending today. We usually produce a summary at the end of these sessions a couple of weeks after and have those released on our website with all the links, and we'll work with Vicky to also produce some of the links as well on there, and also how to get in touch with Vicky if you want to try and do something like this in your community. I guess the last little bit is, as a sign off, is that we have our community congress, which is happening next Friday. It's a really big day and it's all online. It's like a bigger version of this, but a lot better organized, hopefully, which is also, yeah, a lot of taking up a lot of our time and capacity at DisasterWISE. So yeah, feel free to come to that. If you have issues with payment, there's a couple of options to pay for tickets there that hopefully will be accessible to you. But if you have any issues, please email us as well. We want as many people there from all different kinds of perspectives and lived experience and community groups as possible. So yes, we hope to see you there. And we will also send out a little bit of an update on what our next get together for next month will be. But thank you all for coming, and we'll stick around for a couple more minutes if anyone wants to talk. But yeah, thank you all so much. Have a good rest of your day. See ya.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Vicky.
Thanks.
See you later. Bye.